inclusion, representation, super fun, Sina Una, ho! Hey everybody, it's D8 for Inspiration, and I'm here with two fantastic folks. We're super excited to talk about representation and inclusion through the lens of the awesome setting, the Islands of Sina Una. And I just did a Thundercats reference. If you didn't know, look at that Thundercats shirt. Yeah, baby, we're gonna have a great time. I'm so excited to be here with these cool cats. Oh, that's a bad 60s reference. 50s? I don't know. Wherever the beatniks are from. Anyways, I am Jamie Van Dorn. I'm the founder and CEO of Neverending. Neverending is a really cool platform my friends and I are building where you can create billions of unique characters for your D&D and other TTRPG games. You can also create scenes. Pretty soon you'll be able to turn those scenes into webcomics, and soon you'll even be able to make animated videos. Yeah, super cool. But today we are talking again about representation and inclusion through the lens of the Filipino-inspired setting, Sina Una. And I'm here with two fantastic folks who are going to tell us all about it. I'm going to let them go ahead and introduce themselves while I pull up my chair. Take it away, guys. They're like, I
love the intro. I guess I'll start. I'm Lucia Versprilli. I know it's kind of a long last name. I was the lead director on Sina Una. It was kind of my starting baby. And I also run Seersword all over the internet. So I also have like a little shop dedicated to TTRPG related stuff that I run all by myself, and sometimes my mom helps me. So that's me.
People can get cool dice there, right? In addition to being able to get
dice, pins. I have some straggler candles and stuff like that. It is currently closed because I've been kind of doing a rehaul of the shop, but I'll announce when it's back up.
And we've got another individual with us, Paladin. Go ahead.
Hi there, my name is Paladin. I was the co-director for the Islands of Sina Una. I just make a bunch of RPG books now.
That's like the most chill. That's the most chill intro, which is fantastic. But where can people find you guys?
For me, I'm Seersword all over. And then obviously my shop. Mainly I'm on Twitter. That's like the main one for me. Instagram like never works for me. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I try, but you can find me there as Seersword too.
People can find me on Twitter and Instagram under HttPaladin. I say this for every interview I do now. Please don't find me on Facebook. It's fucking weird.
Hey! Lauren is here. You guys say hi. Everybody say hi to Lauren. Hi, Lauren!
Hi.
Thanks for being on. We're super excited to have you. We're super excited for everybody on. So, and if you guys chat, we'll yell out to you as well. So we are going to actually dive into the book. But before we dive into the book, tell me a little bit about the origin. Like, where did the idea come from? Why this book? And, you know, why? Yeah, why? Where and why? Where did it come from and why?
I mean, I've talked about this a couple of times, but I actually I started it just as sort of a thing that I wanted to see in my own games. And at the time I was working at my mom's Filipino restaurant, and so for my entire childhood basically I was kind of like pulling away from being Filipino, and when she opened up her restaurant I kind of started reconnecting and looking into all this kind of like mythology, I suppose, that was kind of left over from the Philippines that I'd never really tapped into. And all the content that I found like based on it was either not made by the right people or represented wrong. And I hate to say represented wrong because I feel like, there's there's some details there, but to me, as a Filipino person, I was like, this isn't right. So I was like, well, if they haven't done it yet, then like, why don't I do it? And then I kind of accidentally signed myself up for a really big project for my first one. But then around that time, I picked up Paladin and we worked on it together and started. And so
you had not been a content creator before for D&D or TTRPGs.
I was making dice. I was making handmade dice for a while, and I was running my home game for, a couple of years at that point. And I knew how to play D&D, but I hadn't really ever published anything professionally or like put out content or anything like that. So it was one of those things where I was like, oh, it'll just be a fun little romp in my culture, and I'll put it out and people will get to enjoy it. And then it kind of just snowballed after that, but I'm really proud of where it ended up anyway. So
Yeah, you absolutely should be. It's fantastic, and definitely does not look like a fun little side project. It looks like a major it is. It's super cool. So Paladin, how did you get involved, and kind of what drew you to the project?
I need money.
As one does when one wants to, eat and have a roof.
Yeah, just flat out exist. No, it's Lucia and I worked previously because I made Lucia some custom numbers for her dice. And then she messaged me and just was saying, hey, I'm working on this book. I need someone to do some graphic design and layout. It's an all Filipino team. We're making a book on Filipino culture and stuff. And at the time, I didn't care about being Filipino, which is a thing that a lot of Filipino people who are diaspora feel, is that they just don't feel Filipino. They separate themselves from being Filipino. And I was in that category, and I just needed some money. I thought, oh, cool, I happen to be Filipino. Cool. This will be an easy buck. I'll be done with this thing in like a month. Then the book took control of my life. Yeah.
I can feel that. We're working on a book too, Anansi's Tapestry of Lives, which is all, inclusive representative NPCs, and it is turning into a huge project. But so I can kind of empathize. I don't know exactly what you all have experienced. I feel like I can empathize a little bit. I'm mixed race Latino, and I have always felt a little disconnected from my culture in some cases. When I was growing up in Southern California, being half Mexican was like a negative in a lot of ways. So I also kind of pulled away from that. It wasn't until like college that I really, like after high school, that I kind of reconnected, because when I moved to the Midwest from California, I suddenly went from being Mexican to being white, which was a weird transition. But I totally leaned into that until like later, and then reconnecting with my culture and my heritage really became important to me. So I love this book. It is beautiful and gorgeous, and I want people to be able to see it. So with your guys' permission, we're gonna kind of dive in and talk about the book and talk about aspects of representation and inclusion through the lens of Sina Una. So are you, hopefully the audience is all ready. We've got some fantastic stuff for you. This cover is beautiful. I think covers also really are kind of a snapshot into things. So I would love to hear from you guys, like who did the cover and what this kind of, why this cover? What does it mean? Is there anything in here that maybe not like a hidden message like that movie, but like, you know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah. Well, the cover was actually, I think, the first or one of the first art pieces that I had done for the project. It was done by Roxy. I think I can grab her Twitter really quick. And she's been one of the artists on the book. She also did the different races, all of the bust shots of the races in the book. And she's super duper talented. And when we started, I just said I wanted 2 characters on the front to kind of represent like the clothing aesthetics of the setting and how I was imagining them. And the whole idea was kind of just having more mystery to it, because we also didn't have a manuscript yet. So as far as like all the little eyes in the background and the background in general, I was just kind of like, let's just make it like fun and spooky, I guess. And then after we were finished with the book and we had kind of decided more on how the races were going to look based on the setting, Roxy went in and actually added more of those design elements. Like for the Balat Kayo, originally it was just like a half orc on the cover, and once we were done writing, she went in and added those details of the gold freckles and the eyes and things like that. And then for the elf race, which are based on these really cool trees in the Philippines, Roxy went in and added those details around the hair. And I remember originally I was like, I really want to give the elf character in the background this hat, because I had seen it. My mom actually had a couple in the restaurant, and I was like, I think that would make such a cool kind of like character piece to have that traditional hat on the cover. So that's kind of where that started. And like I said, Roxy's such an amazing artist, and she really rolled with it. So
Yeah,
I love that cover.
Fantastic. This is really fantastic. There's a lot of contents. I'm not gonna go through all of this by any means, but I just want to give people a sneak peek at everything that is in here. I mean, we've got I can see why this would take over your guys' lives and why this would be so much, because look at this. You've got stuff just about the islands, you've got everything about spirits and religion, getting into animism. There's more stuff about the world, and these setting pieces are beautiful. We're going to look at a little bit of this art. We're not going to dive into all of these regions, but I do want to show off some of the art with that. And then you've got 2 classes, you've got multiple subclasses, you've got backgrounds, feats, you've got equipment. I can't wait to hear like why including some of this equipment was important and the significance of it. You've got monsters in here, spells, magic items. I'm like, holy goodness. And spirits, there's like a lot in here. This is like awesome. I love it. I love it. And I mean, seriously, folks, like hundreds of pages, over 200 pages. This is fantastic. Let's just dive into some of the beautiful regions and some of the images. I just want folks to see this and soak it in for a second. Are these based on real locations in the Philippines, or how much kind of creative license did you guys take with some of these spaces?
I think like one volcano is based off of a real volcano, because we borrowed from its real life myths. But aside from that, we didn't want to just make it you're playing in fantasy Philippines, like a direct one-to-one for land masses.
No, that makes sense. I imagine there was a lot of work in adjusting the real myths and legends of the Philippines and even clothing and things to a fantasy setting. Can you guys talk a little bit about that and some of the work that went into kind of making some of that adjustment so it wasn't exactly a one-to-one? Besides the fact that I'm imagining that there's not actual spellcasters in the Philippines.
As far as you know.
As far as
Debatable.
that's fair. That is fair. That is fair.
Do you want to take this, or do you want me to?
um, we can kind of so talking about like the actual volcano, that was something that I found while we were writing, and I gave it to one of our writers, and I was like, I would really like to include something akin to this, because I think a lot of what makes being Filipino inspired so like really attaches itself to that culture, especially being pre-colonial, is like these stories have been passed down since forever, and keeping them alive, and not only in like retelling, but actually like the spirits that were involved in these stories are personified in the book. It's kind of one of those things where I felt that connect was really, really strong, and is something kind of more unique to the setting. And so there was a little bit of confusion when we wrote the volcano. The writer who took it on, we were reading over it, and we were all kind of like, okay, so who's who? Because in the original tale, it's two men, and they're kind of pining for the same lady. And in the Sina Una version, she rewrote it to be an entire sapphic rewrite of it. And so it was really special to me, just being able to give that kind of place for that kind of representation as well. And I love the way that our writer kind of transformed how the volcano was talked about, and how those kind of like feminine elements of all of them being, women, changed the way that they were personified kind of in the book, and how the volcano itself was looked at. So that was something that was like, just as an example, was really special to me. I really enjoyed reading, and it's still one of my like favorite things in the book to go back and look at, because I love that volcano. I love that story.
Yeah, it's all really beautiful, and I wanna hold on. Where were we? Right. Oh, you know what? Maybe I was in the right area. By the way, this is great because this is all hyperlinked, and in each of these sections, there's like demographics, there's geography, there's climate and lifestyle, and you've got major settlements, and then there are spirits. So talk a little bit about this. There are spirits that are directly. Oh, wait. Hold on. I'm making it work. I will get to there. There are spirits that are tied to specific regions. You guys are like, yes.
Yeah. No, it's for that, it's part of it is it being inspired by a real life myth, and some of it is we had a good range of writers on this project. Some of them were diaspora, some of them were from the Philippines. And when they were writing, they wanted to put in stuff that they were either familiar with or felt very close to. And with some of the spirits, they are just taken from like real life stories that they were told as kids. I think there's one story about termites that is based on a children's story that the writer was told about as a kid. It's just something that he grew up with, and that's part of his livelihood as being Filipino. And he put that in, it's just in the book now. It's part of the world because we wanted this book to be really built on, the people who are Filipino. And while it includes your ancestors, it does include us as well. I remember, gosh, there's one island, and we said, hey, this island should just be kind of more dangerous than the other ones, just inherently. We'll leave it to the writer to decide how it is. And we handed the assignment off. We said, hey, make the island dangerous, not like people can't live there, but just like make it like a little bit more dangerous. And when they turned in the assignment, we were like, hey, why is it poisonous? Why is like almost every plant poisonous? And they were like, oh well, I really like poisonous plants. There's a bunch of them here in the Philippines, and I grew up looking at them and reading about them and like studying them, and I really like poisonous plants. And we're like, what? Yeah, I got a few poisonous plants in my house. Do you want to see? And we're like, what?
So that's fantastic because it sounds like, you know, other Filipino writers, other Filipino contributors were able to bring parts of their own experiences into the book and just enriching it. Like I would have never known that that was like a common thing in the Philippines. And it sounds like it was a surprise for you as well to some extent.
Oh yeah, no, I didn't. The only thing that people could show me that what it meant to be Filipino was food, but like that's it's a very shallow connection, even if people take it very, very seriously to some degree. Like food for me, I really like lumpia, I really like sinigang, I really like tuluna, but I can't stand halo halo. I really don't like Jollibee, so there's not much to the whole food connection for me growing up.
Does food appear in the book at all? I don't remember.
Absolutely, it does. That was actually one of the starting points that we kind of jumped off of. Was I was like, I'm putting food in this book because, like I said, I was working at my mom's Filipino restaurant, so that was kind of my point of connection back, because I grew up with, like, you know, the party foods, the lumpia and the pancit, and I was always like, I don't really look forward to those things though. And once my mom started making more traditional dishes that she had learned from like her Lola, I that was when I was like, oh, I'm excited about these things because I love these flavors. So that was like, I think that was the first piece of art that I did for the book. Was I drew up like essentially a menu of foods, and I was like, put this in. I will not take no for an answer. So there's a whole section that me and Mackenzie worked on together of food in the book, so that people, like, when you go to a dinner in your games, you have something to say, okay, this is what they're serving, this is what it smells like, this is what it's made of. Because I think for a lot of Filipino people, but just like people of color in general, food is like one of those things that, you know, you all sit around a table and have together, and that's kind of a point of connection. It's like cooking for each other, and it's like a love language. So that was something that I really wanted.
100%. And it does provide a richness to a setting as well, because, you know, food is so distinct and culturally significant for each area. So I love that. I do want to talk a little bit about, you guys have specific kinds of lineages or races that are in here that are fantastic. And one of them, I'm not going to say because I'm going to say it incorrectly. So I'm going to ask you guys, one of you, to say it. But it is that half orc adjacent lineage that.
Balat kayo.
Thank you. Balat kayo. I still probably said it incorrectly, but so tell me about this. Tell us about this.
It's my favorite thing we've made, just because the story behind it is just such a nightmare. We were doing marketing for the book via Twitter. I would just make 3 threads a week for a few months, and that was our main form of marketing. Which reminds me that when I started doing it, I messaged Lucy after the first one going like, oh God, do I have to keep doing this? It's been a while since then, hasn't it? But we were trying to figure out how to have the different races make sense when they appear in Sina Una. And like with tieflings that have a direct tie to, you know, hell or the abyss, we don't have that in our book. Because this is a weird thing to bring up in the middle of a casual interview, but like the idea of a strict reward/punishment afterlife is really truly found in mainly Abrahamic faiths. The afterlife mythology is very diverse and very varied, and we didn't have a strict connection for tieflings. We had to make a new tiefling. Well, we have new magic here. We have new pieces here. well, why not just do a whole sweep of all the core races for how they can fit in easily into our book. And with half orcs, you get into the territory of if you think about the half orcs in D&D too much, you get vaguely uncomfortable. And like most rewrites from the official company to make half orcs okay, still make me feel uncomfortable. So we wanted a way to play half orcs in this world and not feel uncomfortable, which made a longer conversation than you'd think. It finally ended at 4 a.m. when we came up with the idea of basing it off of an event that happens in the book based off a thing in mythology. And I clearly remember 4 a.m. on my bathroom floor and Lucia yelling, "We did it! We beat racism!" Just because it was just literally working on this book has just been really intense.
We do have a question before we get to it. I want to acknowledge, guys, I am trying my best in the scrolling and stuff. So this is navigating a PDF apparently is new to me. So for all of our viewers, patience, please, patience as I try to make it like viewable and legible so that you guys can see it. But we have a great question, which is, did the animation, the anime,
Tressa.
in having any influence in the book? But I love that anime, by the way.
So I have a love-hate relationship with Tressa. I think that the original like comics are really well grounded, but they did some weird things in the Netflix adaptation that were just
questionable.
Like talking about looking at kind of a culture through like a Western lens. It felt very apparent in the Netflix adaptation. However, some things for the animation I thought were really cool. But Tressa also came out, I think, a couple months after we had finished writing, I think.
Yeah, the animation came out in June 2021. We finished up the book in October 2020.
Yeah,
so you released on October 5th, 2020, and Tressa came out on my birthday last year.
Oh.
yeah.
Fun fact, now we know, with a little bit of Google research, you can figure out Paladin's birthday. At least the month and day.
Yeah, actually, Lucy, you know what's funny? I was talking with BJ about it, and like he was like, "What do you mean your birthday's on June 11th?" I'm like, "My birthday's on June 11th, the literal day of the Philippine Revolution." What are you?
A troublemaker.
Apparently.
Yeah. No, but Tressa was cool. There was definitely some things that I thought they did well as far as kind of introducing some of the mythology to a Western audience. But also like the dub was not great. They did what they could, but it was really unfortunate at some points. But the one thing I remember when Tressa came out, I remember the team, we all talked about it in kind of our group chat. And I was like, the one thing that Tressa did that I really regret not including in the book was I never told anybody. As the art director, it was my responsibility to tell somebody, make one of these men just abnormally hot. Just like one of the prettiest boys you've ever seen, and I didn't do it, and I was watching Tressa and I was like, I missed out. I missed my chance. There's like one scene where he's in and he's literally in the background for like 2 seconds of that animation, and I was like, I didn't do that. I missed out.
Are you telling me that those 3 gods and the tiefling weren't enough for you?
Well, okay, I will say there's still some very attractive masculine figures in the book, but specifically the kind of like I guess just like the emo bad boy look that the one character had in Tresse. I was like, dang it.
I feel that.
Some of the art in the book is definitely a sign of, wow, people really were trapped in their home and unable to go dating for a while now, huh? People really have been going through a hard time right now, not be able to go out and meet new people.
Mm-hmm.
It really shows.
That in the book. Absolutely.
Yeah, no, it really showed off. And like, there's 3 gods in the deity section, and good God, those thighs.
Well, there's so much in here. They're really unique variants. Like, I would not have expected a Dragonborn with astral projection as kind of a, with some of these spells in here and blindsided. Just, there's a lot of really cool storytelling opportunities, like, with the volcano dwarves, with the elves, and the art for all of this is just so rich. This is actually one of my favorites right here. This is so beautiful in the, I want to say ballet elf, but I'm sure that's not how balate elf, which is just fantastic. Fantastic. Are there any of the sub races that really stand out for either of you, that where you have a favorite? Do one or both of you have favorite sub races?
I like the tiefling thematically. I don't like the tiefling art. It's beautiful, it's wonderful, but it disrupted the entire workflow for a good day and a half. Because the artist that right there, the artist posted up that picture of the tiefling, and like everybody stopped. Everybody stopped.
Oh my God, take it off the stream.
I get it. I understand why it stopped. I know why it halted. I know why it came to a grinding halt. But at the same time, we're all in different time zones. I could tell who was waking up because someone new would be like, "Excuse me?"
There were entire memes made just for the Discord, just of this tiefling.
Yeah. I feel that.
It just really, I hate that we're keeping PG-13 right now, but yeah, no, everybody just stopped. I remember the lead writer came in like, "Why did I have to find out via Twitter about a tiefling that would treat me right?"
I know we are PG-13, so all I'm gonna say is that I'm not really that interested in the tiefling treating me right. I want the tiefling to treat me wrong. Just gonna say that. Because, yeah. Anyways, let's move on. So the tiefling was a favorite. Are there other favorite subraces, sublineages that you guys really vibed with? We got tiefling.
I think that personally my favorite was the Balatkayo, just because like not only was I unpacking, feeling disconnected from my culture because of, colonization, but then I also had to go through the lore of orcs and half orcs in the D&D world. And, like we were talking about, it was like kind of painful to read, just, all of the, not like directly saying that orcs were based off of a certain culture, but that they had a lot in common with real life, ways and
perceptions around certain
right. And so for me, it was one of those things where we both agreed that not only having a completely different perspective on the half orc was important because of the already outlined lore, but also because being half of one race and half of another race is something that we're both really familiar with. And so rewriting it as its own sort of identity rather than just feeling disconnected from, 50% this and 50% that was really important to me. So when we wrote it and we came up with, they have these kind of facial features because they're connected to Halia's mask, and kind of having that creation based off of like a different kind of fighting spirit that orcs are typically kind of aligned with was very like it was heavy, but once we figured it out, it was like a huge weight was lifted off my shoulders. And that's why I don't remember saying that I solved racism. It's kind
You
of all
definitely
a blur.
did. It's one of the only things I remember from that night.
But I think that I was just so like, I was so far into it at that point that once we kind of came to this conclusion, I was like, oh my God, I don't have to put all of that like really damaging ideals into my book, and I can just do something else and I can make it my own. And so I'm really proud of the Blood Coyotes in this book.
It's beautiful. I mean, and again, the execution in terms of mechanics is really fantastic. I love the gilded gifts. This is just a really unique way to approach magic items that isn't just, damage or AC boost. It's like, I love that the armor gives temporary hit points instead of a flat AC bonus. I love that there's an ability check. I love that it's about overcoming resistances as opposed to a flat damage bonus. So there's just some really interesting things here that I just love. I mean, for folks who are really interested in not just the cultural aspects and having a world with so much built-in richness, the execution in terms of mechanics and the interesting turns and choices here are just fantastic. So props to everybody involved. I want to dive into some of the classes. By the way, also, again, all of this art, just look at this, look at it. It's so beautiful. I should actually zoom this down for folks so we can see it a little bit better. Bear with me. Again, I don't know how to scroll or navigate or anything. I don't know why, but just look at this. How this is so beautiful. This is so beautiful. And this makes me want to play a little girl warlock for some reason. Like, I'm like, it's just fantastic. This is beautiful as well. Just so stunning. But stepping away from the art, let's diving into some of the classes. Can you guys talk a little bit about the inclusion of some specific classes and why?
Yeah, sure. I'm going to preface this with saying that figuring out what to do for classes took me and a couple of art researchers, I want to say half a year just to figure out.
Actually, before we get into that, I apologize. We did have a question from chat. Is that Magellan? Is there a Magellan-like archetype character in the world? Is that
No. Why would there ever be? I don't want to be rude. I don't want to be rude, but why? Magellan ain't Filipino, and he was kind of just blight. My ancestor killed him. I don't know why we would include him in this.
Well, and that's fair. The focus of this is not on, it's really a pre-colonial focus for this. So, and that's where a lot of the important kind of cultural context is coming from. I think that is, again, it looks like you guys took made a deliberate choice, to focus on, a non-Western lens, and I think that's really powerful. I think that's one of the things that makes this so unique and interesting, is that there is none of this is through a typical Western lens. This is a lot of great pre-colonial, beautiful history and myth like kind of wrapped up in a game. At least that's my take on it.
Yeah, I think just to, kind of clear why when we started, when I kind of set out that I wanted to do everything pre-colonial, a lot of what we had to unpack and what was really hard and draining for everybody on the team was when Magellan landed in the Philippines, like so much of what we understand about our own culture was kind of destroyed with him arriving. And so kind of like how everybody talks about Christopher Columbus, and when you're young and you're taught about him, and it's this, oh, he was this young adventurer and he discovered America and blah blah blah. In reality, now that we're all older and we can kind of start to look at it from a different perspective of, well, Christopher Columbus didn't discover anything. People were already living there. So for us, I mean, Magellan was kind of somebody that in the group chats that we were all in, we would bag on him all the time because we were like, that guy sucks.
When we were doing
He was the villain.
Yeah, when we were doing our funding period, every single time we get a 10% mark, I'd make another like vague threat against Magellan, which is easy. You can't tweet back at me.
Yeah, and there's a lot of stories told around Magellan of how ultimately what his demise was that everybody in his fleet was wearing iron armor, and when they got into the sea trying to run away from our ancestors in thongs, they died because the Filipinos were like, oh, you're really easy to catch up to when you're weighed down by like 20 pounds of metal. Or
And
there's other
metal
lore
armor
that
doesn't float?
No, surprisingly.
there's other lore that when they came back to retrieve Magellan's body, Lapu Lapu was like, no, I ate that guy.
No, it was the Maharaja tried to get like Magellan's remains back, and
Yeah.
Lapu Lapu was like, no, I've hidden them. We're not giving them back.
There's lots of stories that the one that I always heard was that Lapu Lapu was like, no, I ate that guy. So for us, we kind of have to look at it through this lens of a lot of people in the Philippines right now kind of have like a distorted view of Lapu Lapu and Magellan because some people think that Magellan was like, he brought Christ over to the Philippines and we're all thankful for that. And then, some people really celebrate Lapu Lapu and trying to preserve like those indigenous beliefs. So for us, Magellan was kind of like our Christopher Columbus. And we were like, like, let that guy rot forever. to kind of clear why we didn't do any of that.
Yeah, and I'm glad that we had a chance to talk about this because that's, I think it's important to be able to have these types of discussions to widen people's lens because, for some people, all they've heard, and their experience is based on those stories that they were told as kids about these folks being heroes because they discovered an area and they don't think about it from the perspective of the people who are living there, the indigenous peoples who lost tremendous amounts of history and tremendous amounts of culture, as well as, the ancestral and cultural traumas that resulted. And so one of the things that I love about this is that Sina Una is recapturing those histories in a way that allows people to enjoy them, learn about them, and especially I imagine for Filipinos to celebrate them in a space where it's super fun, So that's just fantastic. I do want to talk a little bit about some of these classes and why you know, why they were included, who are they, why they were included. That's where we were before we got a little sidetracked on this important topic.
Yeah. Originally, I think when I joined the team, the book overall was going to be like one island. I think like 10 or so monsters and like a class or two. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of got out of hand from that, and I will take the blame for that. Um, but you know, 5e trends towards making a bunch of subclasses for everything, because you only make a new class if the experience of playing that fantasy is distinct enough. And with the Bylon and Headhunter, we felt they were distinct enough to warrant us making an entirely dedicated class for it. So we have two whole classes with their own subclasses, and then we made subclasses after that that tied into either the pre-colonial culture or the mythology of the Philippines.
That's great. So can you guys talk a little bit about these are the two classes that, wow, there's so much in here. I don't want to scroll through all of this. So I'm going to have you guys chat a little bit about each of these classes and what makes them kind of distinct and unique. Just briefly overall. I know that's kind of putting you guys on the spot because you might not have like been studying the book super recently. So
Sure. Babylon is intelligence-based divine spellcaster. It's one. It's we had our own shamans and spiritual leaders in the Philippines in pre-colonial times, and they were known as Bylons. They would heal, they would ward away spirits, and they would lead people. We had Headhunter, which is a martial class, which is it's a practice back then where you've committed a small crime, you'll get a penalty, you'll have to pay up for it. But there were things that someone could do that were just beyond paying a fine or doing some time paying off the debt. There were things that couldn't ordinarily be forgiven. And so headhunters would go out and, with the help of their ancestors, going through spiritual rites, follow someone, figure out where they were, go to their village, even if it took them like a week or a month to find them, and kill them.
Go ahead.
And so we built that, and Thrace was based off of that, based off of three main focuses of the class. And then the subclasses, again, it's just either a mythology piece or culture piece from way back then.
What I love about the Headhunter is how it speaks to truth, the history, as opposed to, again, the Western lens of what a headhunter is. And that is really interesting. Like when I read this, the thing that stood out for me immediately was this header, the people's messenger, and mournful reasons. It's just, it's so, I know that sounds weird to say this, but it's beautiful. It's really beautiful. And it's this idea of this, what in Western culture is seen as something, very savage, primal, but it's actually, these are people who are doing a service for the community. They're an important part of that community, and they're doing good. They're heroes, and they're not the kind of, unthinking villains that are, as it's often portrayed, again, in typical Western media. Is that accurate for you guys? Like, I don't want to.
Yeah, there's this old quote that I don't know where it is, but like, it talks about how there's this expectation where if someone learns how to be violent, learns how to be a soldier, they're expected to just put that part of them away when they try and lead a normal life again. And it kind of puts away the idea that on some level, violence is inherent to a daily life in some way, form, or another. And a lot of Western culture treats violence as inherently a bad thing. Any amount of violence is awful. It's terrible. It should be avoided no matter what. And if you are violent, you are in the wrong. And I don't know. I feel like violence is on some level a tool. And at least with our ancestors, they saw that as well. And they saw how it could be applied as a really finely tuned tool. Yeah, part of making this book was to break ourselves out of a strict Western thought process of thinking how things should be fit in with the Western style, with the Western tastes on any level. And I got told at a panel I was doing that one of the things that someone thought of was they liked how we didn't try and ask for permission for doing this book. And it baffled me because, like, why would I ever ask for permission? Why would I ever try and seek someone's approval to work on this book, to make this book? And on some level, God, on some level, even that is an act of violence, and there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, that's great. I almost like don't want to say anything else. That was so like powerful and meaningful. But I do, for our viewers, there are 2 complete classes in this, and there are 10 additional subclasses for
12.
The 12. So I can't count. I never claimed to be able to math well, and I will not be held accountable for numbers. So there are 12. Thank you for the correction. There are 12 fantastic subclasses for these. We're not going to go through all of them, but I just want to say these out loud for folks. We've got the Barbarian Path of the Black River. We've got the Bard College of Sedai. Oh, I'm going to say this next one. Okay. Cleric Volcano Domain.
Volcano.
That's cute. Druid Circle of Tides. Apparently, click. Why do you hate me? Hold on. There we go. Druid Circle of Tides. I was on a roll. I was legit on a roll.
Which one are you stuck on?
Fighter Kowal.
Ka'al.
Kowal.
Ka'al.
Ka'al. Oh. Why am I the one reading these?
Because it's funnier that way.
This is great. It's a great. Everybody gets to learn.
Right, yeah, that's true. Monk Way of Kalulu. Monk Way of Kalulua.
Monk Way of Kalula.
Every WA is an I hope.
Most of the time. Don't worry. Got us too working on this.
Paladin Oath of Blood.
Blood.
That was coming. I almost did it myself, but I don't want to. You're having so much fun with it. I didn't want to steal that from you.
Thank you.
Ranger.
Oh, this is a good one.
This is the worst one.
Yeah.
Mengenga ya.
No.
Manjanja ya. I was so excited. I thought. All right.
You're doing great.
Manganga ya. All right. Well, thank you. Rogue. Now I almost can't even say the Rogue Grave Robber.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Sorcerer Dewata Bloodline.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Told you it was sometimes.
Warlock Moon Eater Patron. That, by the way, sick name and sick subclass. I love it. Sick, like, in the best way possible. It's so cool. And Wizard Mentala.
Yeah.
Finish strong. That's what I like to do. Yeah. These are all fantastic. Do you guys have like a favorite, not to put you on the spot, but if you happen to have a favorite subclass, do you guys have a favorite subclass or class or subclass?
Fighter, just because the designer just had such a hard task ahead of her, because most fighter subclasses are very passive or they're focused on like active combat. And I told her, listen, this has to be focused on defense. I don't know how to make this fun, but it can't be just like a static thing. And so she made a very active defensive fighter, and it's beautiful. It's wonderful. Uh, and now she works at Wizards.
Oh, so Mackenzie worked on this?
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, she's so talented. Shout out to Mackenzie. She is really like fantastic. And this is a great class. Like I love the Guardian Roar. That's just so cool.
She was playing Breath of the Wild a lot. That's where its main class picture comes from.
That's really cool. Yeah, this is really beautiful stuff. Resolute Loyalty is great as well. I mean, this is this is just so great. Lucia, do you have a favorite class or subclass that's in the book?
My favorite class is probably the Babylon. Just because I remember when we were first starting, and that was one of the classes that I really wanted to have. And I love the capability of like basically having a familiar with you that actually does things. Because that's kind of one of the gripes that I have with a lot of the other, you have this animal companion, but it's not even really an animal companion for the class either. It's more of like, that's your arcane focus. So I really like that about the Babylon. I really like the history behind it. Then I've been playing the Black River Barbarian on stream, and she's chaos. I love her. I love the Black River Barbarian.
You just like playing a buff Lola.
I do.
I love the art for Barbarian. Like this whole
God, this what a nightmare that thing is.
So beautiful. Love it.
I'm having flashbacks to the research now, Lucia.
Yeah.
God.
So I take it there was a lot of research going into this.
Yeah. Yeah, there was.
I think the subclasses were probably the most intensive research that y'all had to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I spent like a solid like 2-3 months looking for a book. And I happened to find a copy because someone gave me a PDF copy. And there was like one page in there that I read, and that became the inspiration for the Black River Barbarian. And that was for one subclass.
I told folks when I was advertising this that we'd get into the monsters, and we will really quick because we've got 2 minutes left. But there are great backgrounds in here as well, which are just fan-freaking-tastic. But we don't have time to talk about those because, or the spells. They're great, unique spells. Look at this spell list, everybody. I want our viewers to check out that there are, look at the Lava Plume. I want that. I'm not so into lizard skin because I moisturize pretty often. So I'd be trying to avoid that.
Howard.
But there's a lot of great spells in here. But let's dive into the monsters because there are quite a few in here, and I'm not going to count them because we've already proven that math and even basic counting apparently does not work. So was this a lot of work or a lot of joy, or?
I mean, all of it was joyful, but like a lot of it dealt with trying to modernize myths so that they're palatable, but also make it so that it didn't fall into the same pit traps that 5e design does. We didn't give anything an alignment. We didn't give anything a specific gender. So everything here is an example of one you could fight, and creatures differ from one another all the time. Huh? You're muted.
I have to ask.
Oh.
I'm gonna just I'm gonna just zoom in so that people understand why I'm asking. Why they gotta step on the chicken, yo?
I want you to know that when I got one of the early file types for it, the file type was called "It Enjoys It."
It enjoys it. Well, all right. I feel bad. I saw this and I was like, oh, this is really cool. And then I was like, oh, that poor chicken.
Again, the file name is "It Enjoys It."
Chickens were like an important icon throughout.
Chickens became a huge thing. There's
there's a, if it makes you feel any better, there's an image, I don't know where in the book, I'm gonna be honest,
I hid it from you.
There's a I found from one of the museums that we were taking a lot of kind of content from and being inspired with. They had this diorama of pre-colonial Philippine life where they had a little chicken in a basket, but like it had a little hole cut out for its head, like, you know, a designer chihuahua kind of deal. And I was like, oh my God, I have to put that in. So I think that one being crushed was kind of retribution for me forcing chicken in a basket.
For your designer chicken request. I love it. I'm just clicking through some of these to show off like just some of the just beautiful, beautiful art.
Actually, real quick, can you go back one to the smiling one-eyed monster?
Yes. Yes. I can even zoom in.
Can you pronounce that for me?
You're mean. You're just a mean man. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. You think you yeah. You think I can't pronounce that? Okay. I can't. No, I got this. All right. Bungsingis. Bungingsigit. Bungingsigis. Am I close? Am I close? I'm close, right?
You're close to the spirit of it is the thing.
All right. How would you actually, what is the
Yes.
I had
so NG is its own like character in all the dialects. So like it's inherently mean to ask because it makes an entirely different sound than what it appears as. But yeah, bunyisnyis, because you smile when you say it.
Bunyisnyis.
Yeah.
Oh, it's fun to say. It's much funner to say it when I know how it's pronounced.
But like when you don't pronounce it correctly, it makes everyone laugh and stuff, and it's also to the spirit of it.
That's fair.
I'm sorry, that one always messed me up.
It's great, by the way. These are I want this as my spirit animal.
It's a terrible name for auto captioners. They never know what to do with it.
Oh.
A lot of these are terrible for auto captures. Let's be very fair here.
Well, that one especially, it always has, if I ever say it, it always captions it like I said something bad.
Oh, God. Like me learning about NGA and how that's supposed to be pronounced. BJ was very patient with me.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. This, by the way, this was terrifying. This is like nightmare fuel. 100% nightmare fuel.
Yeah.
Well, the last thing that there are tons that we could go into here, but I just wanted to point out something really, really cool. Oh, apparently I can't navigate. So most people, and this is the last thing because we're over on time. Merfolk normally, you got your mermaid, you got your merman at most usually. This is so cool. Look at this. Again, viewers, look at this. There's so much richness here. You've got, I can count this many, 4 distinct kinds of merfolk in this book. I swear to God, Paladin, I know you're tempted to be like, there are 6, or make me like just one, and I'll be like, wait, I'll be looking. So why are there multiple merfolk? And this will be our ending, kind of our ending thing, so that we, but I'd love to hear about that. Because there's a whole like intro section.
I mean, why are there multiple races on land? I think at least while we were I did most of the art except for the katas for the merfolk, and it was my favorite thing ever to talk to the writers who did these merfolk, especially because we based them off of different fish that were native to the Philippines, and so they kind of correlated with like their abilities and what they're capable of. And so like I look at the merfolk section like really fondly, just because I'm pretty proud of the art in there, and I'm really proud of the whole team for writing and making it like so fun, because I was the type of girl when I was younger, I loved mermaids, and when I found out that like sirens were a thing, I was like even more excited about mermaids. And so there's just kind of like a whole different feeling, I guess, to like the way that these specific merfolk are, because there's a bunch of different species on land. So I think that with our mythology, it just, people were like, well, there's lots of things that could probably kill you in the ocean.
Yeah, that's a thing. I know I said this would be the last thing, but I just wanted to point out for folks that there is a whole appendix, by the way, on the research and history here, and this is just fan freaking tastic. Like, this is fan freaking tastic. This book, like, it just, seriously, people have to get this book. There's
my one illustration in the entire book is in this section.
Oh, is it? Hold on,
Yeah.
we're gonna find this. Paladin Seersword.
This is actual payback for chicken in a basket. This is what he did to me.
It's the bear. Is it the bear? That's the only illustration in there. I love it.
Yeah.
Love it. Well, thank you guys. We went a little long. I want to thank everyone for coming to the stream. We are gonna do a little outro, so everybody's gonna get to say who they are again and where they're from and where you can find them. My name is Jamie Van Dorn. I'm the founder and CEO of Neverending. Neverending is pretty cool. Check it out. BeNeverending.app. Make some characters. Make some tokens. Pretty soon you'll make some scenes in some webcomics. But more importantly, our 2 fantastic guests. You got to follow them on social media. Check out the book. I'll let you guys remind folks who you are and where they can find you.
Lucia, you first.
Okay. Hi, I'm Lucia Verspilli. Thank you for joining. This was fun. I love talking about this book. It's my baby. I'm so proud of it. And I'm so proud of our team. So you can actually, we do have a website for it. I never post about it, but it is islandsofsinauna.com, where you can actually see like all of the artists and all of the writers. Other than just the 2 of us, like this book really wouldn't have been possible without them. So please support them as well. But you can find me on my website, Seersword.com, or on Twitter. That's where I'm the most active. Sometimes I'm occasionally on Instagram when I can get it to work. Also at Seersword. And that's basically me. Who knows what I'll post next?
I am Paladin, otherwise known as HttPaladin. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at HttPaladin. You can also find me on Facebook if you're just a freak. And you can find me on Kickstarter, where I'll have a new project next month.
Sweet. Exciting times. Thank you, everybody, for coming. I hope you guys enjoyed this show. We loved it. We had a great time. And I hope that you come back and check us out. For now, goodbye. Goodbye. Get out of here. Go on with your lives. See ya.